Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the DC Comics lab. This is the video number 11. Okay, we have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have begun the process of the zero touch installation process. Okay, and then we have found a problem, or we have encountered a problem during the deployment, that the deployment of Windows was stuck at the one moment screen. Okay, and this is a known issue when you are deploying Windows 10 using Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. This is a very famous bug, and to overcome it you need to create an answer file or unattended.xml file and put it in the Windows 10 installation folder. So this unattended.xml or answer file will pass the OOBE, which is out of the box experience. This is the phase where the deployment gets stuck and the Microsoft Deployment Tool can't handle it. So the only or the indirect way to bypass this issue or this problem is to create an answer file or unattended.xml file, so it passes the OOBE, which will fix the problem of one moment screen stuck and will continue the process of the Windows deployment without problems. Okay, and after we have continue the process of the Windows 10 deployment successfully and silently, we have another problem with the installation of the softwares like Adobe Reader, Firefox, Google Chrome, and Classic Shell, and 7-Zip, and Office 2016, and VLC. All of them we have configured them in the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit to be installed silently. I mean, without any installation Windows, progress, without any input from the user. We had an error in the deployment, which was error 193. The problem was the installation command line was not correct, and it was fixed, and the installation was done completely. At the end, we have both Windows 10 LTSC 2019 64-bit Windows was installed silently. The hard disk for the PC was partitioned for two partitions, C and D. 50%. The first partition will take 50% of the hard disk, and the second partition will take 50% of the hard disk. And we have installed the programs, all of the above programs, silently, and all of this has been done. And we have a summary at the end of the deployment saying that we have successfully installed Windows 10 LTSC 2019 64-bit and all of the programs. And for just revision, I will show you all the process from the beginning. Here we will power on the workstation. This workstation doesn't have any operating system and even it have a hard disk which is still not partitioned yet. As soon as we power on this virtual machine or this PC, as we can say, it will try to communicate with the DHCP to get an IP address. So it will communicate with the DHCP through port 60. This is not the correct port, but I am assuming this port. And why we are giving ports to the DHCP and Windows deployment services? Because both server roles are on the same server. So for the PC to differentiate between the DHCP and the Windows deployment services, the both on the same server and both have the same IP address. So you need to differentiate. The PC will differentiate it according to the port. Anyway, this PC will communicate with the DHCP to get an IP address, and then the DHCP will give it some information. After the workstation gets its IP from the DHCP server, it will boot in a system called System Pixie boot, and then the DHCP will give it some information concerning the boot file and the boot server or the Windows deployment services server IP. And then the workstation will go to the Windows deployment server, and then a boot image or the Windows deployment boot image will be up and running. And then in the background, the process of the deployment will be working. What will be working in the background? The deployment share, the workstation will go and begin the installation of the Windows files, and these files or this Windows installation will be automated according to a script. Okay. we have in the script saying that we need the hard disk to be partitions to C and D, and every partition will be 50%, and this is for the new computers. I mean for the computers without any operating systems, and the hard disk is new and not partitioned. And after the Windows installation is finished, we will go to the second script, which will install the softwares, okay, as we said before, in a silent mode. And then at the end, after the finish of the Windows installation and the software installation, we have our PC up and running, or having our Windows and software installed. We will not join this PC now to the domain, or even will not give it a name automatically. As I said before, here we will create a database that will contain the name of the PC, and the name of PC will be given to the PC according to its network card MAC address. Anyway, these scripts and these source files, all of these scripts and source files, all of the deployment process will be done according to a task and to a certain order. Okay, so this task we have it named as Windows 10 LTC deployment task, and this is the task ID. This is something like a private ID, so we can differentiate, or so the CAN deployment toolkit can differentiate different tasks from each other. Anyway, at the end we have got our PC installed and everything is finished. This is the whole process. So in this lab we will do another thing. We have stopped at the previous video. At this point here we can see that our PC is having all of the softwares installed: Adobe Reader and Google Chrome and Firefox and 7-Zip and Office, and we have the Windows 10 installed, and the hard disk is partitioned to C and D. Here we will do something called we will do some tips and tweaks to this Windows 10 operating system. Why we are doing this? Because after we do this, we will make this Windows, or we'll take an image of this Windows. So after doing the tips and tweaks, we will say what the tips and tweaks that we will do. We will take an image of this Windows 10 after we have installed the softwares and partitioned the hard disk. Okay, and then we'll do some tweaks, and then we will take an image. This image will be deployed, so we will not use this process anymore. We will not deploy, or we will not work with this task anymore. So we will not deploy the Windows 10 using scripts or Windows images or something. No, we will create another list, or we will take an image of this Windows, and this Windows image will be our master image. This will be deployed after we take an image of this PC. How we will do this, I will show you another graph. Here we can see that this is the PC. We have Windows 10 LTSC 2019 installed. We have Firefox Classic Shell and 7-Zip and Google Chrome and Office and Adobe Reader, and we have our hard disk partitioned to two partitions, C and D. So what we will do, we have some tweaks to do. Here we will create a Windows 10 user master profile. You know all that when you log into the Windows, we have a Windows 10 user profile created. It's created in C users, and then the user profile name, and under this path we have the documents, the folder of documents, and the folder of downloads. I can show you all here a little demonstration. Here we can see this is my documents. Okay, this is Karim, for example, and here we can see that we have documents, we have downloads, we have videos, we have contacts, we have desktop. Okay, all of this we can see it from here. It's created in C, and then users, and then we have the folder of the user. Here we can see this is my username, and under it we can see the documents and downloads and all of this. There is a big issue concerning this way of saving the users documents. Okay, or we can all see that all of the user documents are stored in C users Karim. Okay, or C users, the username of the username of, or the user name profile. Okay, for example, my name is Karim, so my folder will be named as Karim. Anyway, we can see that this folder, if for any reason the C drive or the C that will contain our system have a virus, or we need to format it for any reason, or something happened to it, all of our documents will be lost. So the first thing to do, we will need to move all of these documents or all of these folders to the D folder. How we can do this? We will do this through right click on the properties, and then we will go to the location, and then we will put it on the D drive, and we will put it in something called my documents, and then documents. So the new path will be D, my documents, and then documents. And then, for example, we have another thing, D, for example, for downloads, properties, and then location. Here, for example, it will be D, my documents, downloads, and until we finish moving all of our documents to the D. So if anything happens to the C, we don't have any problem with it. And we will not do this only, but we will force the Windows to move any user profile documents to the new location. For example, what I mean that Windows by default, when you create or when you log in to the Windows, and then a profile will be created for you, it will be created in C users, your username, and then all of your documents will be there. Okay, we will force the Windows that if any user logged in to the Windows, all of its document will be moved from C users to D documents, or to D my documents. I'll show you all how this will be done, but this is a very critical, or this is a best practice tweak. You can do it in a production environment, so you can prevent your users from, for example, or if any antivirus or any virus has infected your C drive, so all of your user documents will not be lost. Okay, so here we will create a Windows 10 master user profile, and then we will do a lot of changes to this user profile, and then after that we will make this master user profile the default Windows user profile. We will do this process through a program called devprof. I will show you all how this will be done. Anyway, we will change the user profile documents from C users user profile name to D my documents. We will add more virtual RAM. Okay, as I said before, virtual RAM, it is a process that we take a part of the hard disk of the PC and we make it as a RAM. Okay, so this will help us when our physical RAM or our real RAM is finished. For example, if you have a 2 GB of RAM and they are consumed, we will make another virtual RAM by 2, so it can be used when the real RAM or the physical RAM is used. Okay, and then we will activate the system protection on the C drive. This is an option that the Windows in interval let's see that let me try to see an expression. Windows 10 in a specific interval of times, it will take an image of the most important system files from the C, and they will do this in a specific time every day. So this is called system protection. We will activate this system protection on the C drive. Okay, and we add a virtual RAM, and then at the end, as I said before, you remember I'm telling you that Windows, when it is installed, we have a local administrator account which is named administrator. This account have full rights on the Windows operating system, and it can do everything. We need to rename this administrator to any other name, and to disable this account and create another account with another name and give it the privileges of this administrator. I will show all how this will be done. Bear with me. Maybe this theoretically will not be clear, but wait with me until we implement it. It will be more clear. Anyway, all of these tweaks we will do on a certain Windows 10 user profile, and then we will use our program devprof to make these changes apply to any Windows 10 user profile. For example, if I do all of these tweaks, I will do my documents, and I will create my virtual RAM and the system protection and the local administrator. All of this will be done on my user profile, which is called Karim. Okay, if another user, for example, called Ahmed, and he access the Windows, he will have all of these changes will be applied to him as well. Okay, so he will have his documents in my documents, and we will have a virtual RAM, and he will have the system protection, and the user of the local administrator will be the same. All of this will be used through the devprof. Okay, anyway, please wait and see this with me practically, because all of this will be clarified. Maybe the theoretical part is not clear, but when we implement it, this will be very clear. Anyway, After we do all of this, we will go to our DC02, which is our second domain controller, and then we will go, which also is this is our second domain controller. We have our Microsoft Deployment Toolkit installed on it, and we have our deployment share. This is the folder that contains all of the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit scripts that automate the process of the deployment and the process of the installation of the software. Anyway, after finishing all of the tweaks, and after all of this is finished, we will go and access this deployment share, and then we will run a script. Okay, before that, sorry, after we finish our tips and tweaks and everything, we will go to the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit console, and then we will create a new task. We name it Windows 10 Capture Task Image. Okay, and you will give it a name. And in this task, we have a script that will be run. This script will make a sysprep to the workstation and capture an image of this PC, and this image will be in deployment share capture on the folder deployment share in the folder called capture. Okay, so at the end we have our workstation. It is sysprepped, and then we have an image captured of this PC after it is sysprepped. Okay, so again we will do the tweaks on this workstation that have Windows 10 installed on it and all of our necessary programs. And after these tweaks are finished, we will go to the Windows Deployment Toolkit console, and then we will create a task. We will name it Windows 10 Capture Master Image Task. Okay, and in this task we will tell him to run a script to sysprep the workstation and take an image from it. This image will be saved to deployment share capture, and then at the end we have our PC sysprepped, and an image is captured. Okay, this image maybe we'll call it capture win10ltsc.wim. This is the extension of the image. What is a sysprep? Maybe one can tell me. I will show you all what is a sysprep will mean. Important issue. Maybe not all of us are experts, so someone are beginners, or some of us doesn't know what is a sysprep, but I have already saved some description for what is a sysprep. Okay, I think this is not, it's for other bookmarks. Yes, here you go. So sysprep. Okay, what is sysprep? Sysprep refers a Windows installation, maybe a client, a normal workstation or a server, for imaging, for taking an image, allowing you to capture a customized installation. Anyway, sysprep removes PC specific information from the Windows installation. Okay, what is the PC specific information? It will be described, or it will be illustrated in the above section, generalizing the installation so it can be installed on different PCs. Okay, so what is the specific information that should be removed? Removes the PC specific information from Windows images, including the PC security identifier. This allows you to capture the image and apply it to another PC. This is known as generalizing the PC. What we mean by PC security identifier: every PC or every workstation, when Windows is installed on it and softwares and everything is installed, it's giving a unique ID. Okay, so if you are in a domain with this security identifier, you can identify workstations by this ID, so not by name or not by IP. This is also another way of identifying workstation by the SID. So if we are going to take an image of this workstation, so its SID should be removed. Okay, so if we want to apply it to another workstation or another new one, they will not be treated as the same PC. So if this computer let's consider this computer has an SID, and the other one, this is another one having the same SID, so for example the domain will consider them as one PC. But if we remove this computer, its SID, and then we take an image of it and deploy it to another workstation or another new workstation, a new SID will be generated for this PC, and this will be completely, or the network or the domain will consider it a new PC. Okay, so this is what we mean by SID. Uninstall specific drivers for the Windows images. For example, if this workstation have a specific drivers for it, or specific drivers for this system in specific, it will be removed. Prefer the PC to deliver it to a custom using okay, after that okay, maybe this is something you need to take into consideration. When we deploy the image, the PC will boot, or it will go to the out of the box experience, so we maybe encounter a problem when we deploy this image, okay, because as I said before, the deployment gets stuck in this process or in this phase. So we need to create an answer file, unattended.xml, so we can pass this process. Allows you to add an answer file to an existing anyway. So in general, what we mean by sysprep, it is something like memory. If for example, if you as a person, for example, you were walking in the street and then you have been struck in your head or something, and you got something like a memory loss, so you are like a blank, so you don't remember anything, okay, or you don't remember your name, you don't remember anything related to yourself, okay. So this is something like memory erase, okay. The PC will be memory erased, so it will be like a blank memory. You can fill it with what you need. So for example, if I have a PC that named, for example, DC03 maybe, and then you make a sysprep to it, so it will not be anymore named DC03. You can rename it to another thing. You can do a lot of things to it. Consider it like a new born PC, okay. For example, you have a PC and then you make sysprep. It is something like you have erased the memory of a person and it is blank. You can do anything, or you can begin a fresh start. So this is maybe the operation of sysprep. So anyway, we will begin our lab. Here we go. After we have installed the or our process of the deployment was finished, we will begin the process of customizing or making some tweaks to the operating system. As I said before, we will move the documents. First of all, as I've told you, we will use, in the process of moving the documents, we will use a program called defprof. Anyway, there is another program here. I will put it. This is a program, okay, that I will put it on every workstation. So I needed this program to be taken in the image, in the Windows 10 image that we will take now after making sysprep, of course. This program is idle log off. I have discussed it before. This is a program that will log off the workstation after 3000 seconds, okay. This is a program that should be on the C partition for every workstation, so the process of the log off can complete or can work. So I will take a copy. It is on already my DC02, my domain controller, second domain controller. I will copy it and put it on my newly deployed workstation, which is now the one that we have deployed in the previous video. And after I put it on this workstation, newly deployed workstation C drive, I will take an image, or I will begin doing other tweaks, and at the end I will take an image, and before taking an image we will make a sysprep. So here we will copy this, remember that any workstation that it is deployed through the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, it can see the deployment share. This is the share, as I said before, this is the folder that contains the scripts for the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. So this can be used to transfer files between my laptop and, or between my virtual machine and this workstation. Here we can see that our deployment is finished. There is zero errors. Anyway, I will make some here I am. For example, the first tweak that we do, we need to personalize the display to make it more wider. remember that we have here I am accessing my second domain controller, and then I will access the deployment share folder because I have put my idle log off folder that contains the program for logging off the machine after 3000 seconds. So here I have put the folder. Here I am also one of the tweaks that I am doing. I am putting this PC and my control panel icons on the desktop. Copy. I will copy this folder. Okay, this is the idle log off. I will take it and put it in the C drive for this workstation. And also I am making some tweaks to the desktop. I will increase the display setting, and I will make this PC and the control panel icons appear on the desktop. Okay. And also, if you need more about how to make a good custom or prepare a Windows 10 master image for deployment, so you make master image not only by installing software and partitioning hard disk. There is a lot of tweaks to be done, and how to make a master image, I have done this in the Transformers lab. I have done it in 3 videos. I prefer that you all see it. It's called create custom Windows 10 workstation installation, okay, or custom image for Windows 10. I will leave it as a reference in the description section under the video. Okay, so here this is the program that we will use to make this profile. This is the administrator profile. We will make this Windows 10 profile after making all of the tweaks that we need. This profile will be copied and it will be the default Windows 10 users profile. Anyway, now we have put this PC and the control panel icons on the desktop. Now we will increase the virtual RAM. So simply devprof, you choose a profile and then you do all the tweaks that you need, maybe registry tweaks, desktop tweaks, everything. And then after that, by using devprof, you are telling him to copy this profile to the default Windows 10 user profile. So basically, or technically, any user will have the same profile that you are working on it now, or the same profile that you are doing the tweaks and Windows 10 customization on it. Okay, so let's see. This is a profile that you customize it and put all of the things you need in it, and then devprof will make it the Windows 10 default user profile. Okay, so now we will go to the D, and then we will make a folder called my documents, and then we will move all of my user documents here, the desktop, the downloads, the documents, the pictures, and the videos folders. All of this will be moved to the my documents. Okay, how we will do this, I will show you all. First of all, here, as I said before, we see the administrator account. We will rename it to any other name. This is a best security practice, because any hacker knows that the administrator is the default Windows 10 user. It's creating by Windows installation, and he can guess the password, so we can make it more difficult on him by renaming the administrator account to any other name. Anyway, we are creating a new user. This will be the second local administrator account, and we name it Batman1, and we will make this user a member of the Windows 10 local administrators group. Okay, this is not the Active Directory administrators group. Okay, so now we'll put a password and then create. So to have two administrator accounts will be better than having one. Okay, and then we will rename this account and we will give it a password. Okay, and it is better not only to rename the account but to rename it and to disable it after that, because we can use Batman 1 as an alternative for the built-in local administrator account. And now we remove Batman from the local users group and we will add him to the local administrators group. This will give him the administrator rights on this workstation. So now we will add Batman 1 to the local administrators group. So now we have this user, this is the local administrator and this is another local administrator. Now we will move all of the desktop documents, pictures, all of these will be moved to the new folder that I have created on the D partition. So now we will right click desktop and then we'll go to the location and then we'll change it to our new folder, which is my documents. Okay, so and after we do all of the tips and tweaks, okay, that as I said before, any user will have his documents default location will be moved to D my documents. Okay, this is better because if any problem happens to the C drive that contains the system and the user documents, it will not be missed or it will not be lost. Okay, so here give it to D my documents and apply and okay. Here it's telling me that it will move it to D my documents and it will create a folder with this name in D my documents. Okay, we'll do this for the downloads and the documents and the pictures and the videos folder. All of these folders will be moved to D my documents. By the way, my documents was an option in Windows, maybe I don't know, XP or 7. In XP all of the documents were in a folder named my documents. Still in newer version of Windows they have changed it from my documents to the user name. Okay, anyway, now we are moving all of our user documents or documents folder to the D my documents. I prefer, because I have done this video in an earlier time before doing my Transformers lab. The Transformers lab, I have 3 videos having more tips and tweaks concerning the Windows. You can see them. I will put it as a reference under the video, but it contains more and more tweaks. This is only some of the tweaks that I have implemented, but there is a lot of tweaks. So here now I have moved all of them, but still there is the video folder. Okay, these basically are default Windows 10 folders. Every folder, for example, pictures are the default location that the Windows 10 puts all of the pictures in it, and videos are the folder that by default Windows put all of the videos in it, and documents, this is also the default folder that the Windows puts all of the Excel documents. Everything will be put in this folder. Okay, and music, this is a folder that Windows by default save all of the music files in it. So here we will go and change the location of the music to my documents, and for the video also. And the location. So now we are basically changing all of this. Here we are preparing this profile or this Windows 10 profile to be our master Windows 10 profile, and after doing all of the tweaks that we need, we will copy it, or by using devprof we will copy it and make this master user profile to be the default Windows 10 user profile for any user. Okay, so here we have moved our our documents or our user profile default folders to the DMI documents, and now we have also renamed the local administrators users of this PC, and we have created another local administrator user account. So now I think we will create the or we will increase the virtual RAM, and then we will open the system restore option. Actually, by creating more virtual machines, my hardware resources are taken, so sometimes it is another tip and tweak. Here, this I have discovered that during working with my Windows 10 deployment in different locations, I have seen that sometimes that this service makes the Windows 10 a little bit slow. It makes some activity on the hard disk of the Windows 10. Actually, this will not appear with an hard disk if it's using SSD hard disk, okay, or solid drive hard disk, okay, but this problem appears when you are using a normal SATA hard disk, okay. So I discovered that this service makes a lot of activity on the hard disk, and sometimes it can reach 100%. So I have discovered through using Google and searching that disabling this service account decreases decreasing the chance that you can get a 100% usage of the hard disk, and then you begin finding yourself the Windows 10 is getting slower and slower. So this is one of the tips and tweaks. You can search the internet. I have searched it already, and this is one of the recommendations, so I am disabling it. This is something related to user experience. This is a service. It is used by Microsoft to send data concerning the user experience concerning the Windows, okay. You can disable it even if you don't or you have an issue with the privacy. You can disable it also, and I prefer when you are installing Windows to disable all of the privacy options, okay. Here I am going to the services to make sure it is disabled. It is called connected user experience. So now it is disabled. It is sorry, it's not disabled, it is stopped, but I tell him to disable it as well, because I said before, this service sometimes have an issue with the hard disk performance of the Windows 10. It makes a lot of activity on the Windows 10 hard disk. Anyway, now we have another tweak. We will increase the virtual I think we'll create the virtual RAM maybe, or now we will open the system protection. Remember, this profile, it's this profile username, or this Windows 10 username, this Windows 10 profile name, it is named administrator as per the username of the Windows user. For example, this is here, we can see that here we call this is administrator account. This account we will use the dev.prof after that to make this default user 10 profile to be to use this user Windows 10 user profile to be the default Windows 10 user profile. So we are doing all of the tweaks on this user 10 profile, and then we will use the dev.prof to make this Windows 10 user profile, the default Windows 10 user profile. Okay, for any user that we will go, we'll have the same profile setting as the administrator. Okay, the profile setting, not the privileges. Okay, I think we don't need this custom setting here for the anyway. So now I think now we will make increase the virtual RAM. I think it is paused, maybe. No, it's playing. Can make it a little bit faster. So just wait a minute here. We will go to right click properties of this PC, and then we go to advanced setting, and then we will go to the virtual RAM and increase it. Here we can go to the yes performance and then setting, and then we will go to the advanced, and then we will go to virtual memory, and then we will uncheck automatic, and then we will give a virtual memory for the C drive to be okay. There is a recommendation that your virtual memory should be double your physical memory. For example, here this workstation have 2 GB of RAM, so I am giving it as a virtual RAM. It should be 4. Okay, so the total physical plus virtual, it will be 6. Okay, so if you have a physical RAM of 2, then the virtual RAM should be double of it, so it should be 4. Here I am giving it 5 GB to 7 GB, 7 from 5 GB to 7 GB. Okay, this is also a recommendation, or a best practice is, if you have a physical RAM, to give it if you are using the option of virtual RAM, to be double of the physical RAM. And then we go to system protection. Here we can see system protection, it is enabled by default, and here it's taking a part. Here let me show you all. Here, as I said before, the system protection will take a copy of the most important Windows 10 operating system files and changes, and save it, okay, regularly in repeated or regular interval of times. Okay, for example, maybe every day at noon, for example, it will take a copy of the Windows 10 most important system files and changes, and we put it on the hard disk. So here I am telling him to use maybe 10% of the hard disk to save this system restore points. Okay, or to make it more space to save the Windows 10 most important system files and changes to this location. It's taking a part of the hard disk, and it will save it or make system restore points to it. And I have discussed what is a system restore point. Anyway, now we have done the virtual RAM, and we should, after increasing the virtual RAM or doing it, you should make a restart. Okay, so basically we have done all of the tweaks that we need on this profile. Now we should make a restart, and then we go to another profile. Okay, so now for example I have the administrator Windows 10 user. I should go to another user or login with another user on this workstation, and then we will use our defprof program to tell it to take a copy of the administrator Windows 10 user profile and make it the default Windows 10 user profile. Okay, so now I am logging off. Here we have done all the tweaks that we need. So now we will go to the process of copying or making our administrator Windows 10 user profile to be the default Windows 10 user profile. So any user, when he logs in for the first time and the Windows 10 creates a profile or a Windows 10 profile for it, it will be the same or be the exact same tweaks and tips or tricks that we have done on the administrator account. Even the desktop will be the same, the shortcuts, the icons on the desktop. Okay, we'll see that now in a moment. Here we can see, for example, that I am logging in with my administrator account, but just note that I have changed it from administrator to Kira of 1. This is a thing that we have done from a couple of seconds ago. We have renamed the administrator account to Kira of 1, but take a note that the profile itself it's not changed. Maybe the name of the profile is changed, but the profile files or folders are the same. It will not be changed. Okay, this will clearly appear when in a couple of seconds now, but just make sure. Now here I'm going with the other local administrator account, and then I will go to the command prompt and use my defprof program to copy or to make the administrator Windows 10 user profile to be the default Windows 10 user profile for any user. Or we can now not use the administrator name, we can use that Kira of 1 will be the default user profile for any Windows 10 user. Anyway, we will go to the command prompt. A defprof, it is an exe file. Okay, it's like a program, but we need to go to the command prompt, to the folder that contains the defprof program, and then we will issue a command, or we will type a command that will copy the administrator user 10 profile or Kira of 1 user profile and make it as a default Windows 10 user profile for every user that logs into this machine. With all the tips and tweaks that we have done, every user when he logs in, he will have his documents in My Documents, he will have this PC and the control panel icons on the desktop, he will have his virtual memory 4 GB or 5, and we have all of the things that we have done. Anyway, now I will go to I will get my defprof. Actually I have left it here. We can see something. This is the administrator Windows 10 user profile folder, and this contains all of the profile setting and folders of the user. It is still named administrator, even though I have changed the username from administrator to Kira of 1. Okay, but it will still be the same, so take a note of this. Okay, so how the defprof will work: the defprof will take a copy of this folder, okay, that will contain all of the user profile setting and documents and so and copy it to another folder. Here is a hidden folder that is called default. This default, this is the location that the Windows 10 will go and create any profile from it. Okay, so for example, here is a folder that we name default. If I am, for example, Ahmed, he will go, Windows 10 will go to the folder that it is hidden and is called default. We will take a copy from it and make a folder with the name of Ahmed, and then we'll have another folder named Ahmed. So basically that what defprof will do, it will copy this profile, okay, and take a copy of it and put it in the default hidden file, okay, which is the default folder for any user that the Windows use to create the profile. Okay, anyway, we don't go into technical details, but what we need to know that the defprof will make any user that logs into this machine will have the same user profile setting and the tips and tweaks the same as for the administrator one. Okay, so now we will go and use our defprof. We will see that also clearly when you see the command. We are telling him, we will see the command is clearly stating that it will make the user default, it will make the administrator local user, sorry, it will make the administrator user 10 profile to be the default Windows 10 profile. Okay, we will see that in a moment, but just bear with me and wait. It will be clearly when we see the command, that the syntax of the command will be very clear, and will show you all what I mean. Here I have copied the folder that contains the program, and then we will go to the command prompt. You should run it as administrator. Here we type cmd. Okay, but here is a mistake. I didn't run it as an administrator, so here I am going to cd desktop, because my devprof program is on the desktop, and then we will go to the folder of the devprof. Okay, and then here is the command that we should type, devprof.exe, and then care of, here I'm typing the command for the program, devprof.exe, and then I'm telling him the profile that I need it to be the Windows 10 default user profile for all of the users on this workstation. But here we can see that we should run first the privilege, and here we have two mistaken. First, we didn't run this command prompt as an administrator, and the profile, it's not named care of 1. I have shown you from a couple of seconds that the user administrator folders, or the user folders for the administrator user, are still named administrator, not care of 1. Okay, so now we will first tell him cmd and then run the command prompt as an administrator, and after doing this process and making the administrator Windows 10 user profile to be the default Windows 10 user profile, we will create a task in the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit to capture an image. Not only before capturing an image, it will make a sysprep, and then it will take an image of this workstation. So here we will go to CD Batman 1. This is CD users, okay, because the profile is in CD users. We will go to CD users, and then we will go to CD Batman 1, and then we will go to CD desktop, and then we will go to the folder CD devprof, and then we will type devprof. This is the program .exe, and then we are telling him the profile that need to be the Windows 10 default master profile. Okay, sorry, the default Windows 10 profile. Here we can see that it doesn't know care of 1, because as I said before, the user or the administrator profile folders or Windows 10 user profile folders are still the same. So here is telling us it will install a service, so it will copy, so it can copy the administrator profile to the default Windows 10 profile. So any user will have a default Windows 10 profile as the administrator exactly. So here now it is completed. Don't look to the errors. So now anyone, when he logs in, he will have the same setting for his profile and all of the tweaks that we have done for the administrator account. So now I have finished the process of the tips and tweaks for the workstation. There is a lot, actually. I said before, I have done a couple of videos in the Transformers lab. It have more tips and tweaks. So here I am just doing another thing. Remember that you right click the setting for the workstation, and then we go to something called integration services, and then guest service. This service will allow us to, or allow me to communicate as a host. Okay, communicate with the guest. Okay, so this is very critical. Anyway, we will do this, and then after doing all the tips and tweaks, we should now go to the second domain controller and go to our Microsoft Deployment Toolkit console and begin making a task list to sysprep this workstation and take an image of it. And this image of it will be deployed to new workstations. Okay, so let's see how this is done. I think it's finished now, maybe. No, still we have a couple of times. Anyway, I think I'm taking here, yes, I am making here a system, or I'm making a checkpoint before capturing an image. So now I think we have finished. Here I have finished the process, maybe. Okay, so now we have finished the process. We will go and our second or the next video to begin the process of making a task on the Microsoft Deployment console, and then to sysprep and capture an image of this workstation. Okay. So we are going to the second domain controller, which have our Microsoft Deployment Toolkit console installed on it. So now I'm logging into the second domain controller. And take note in this, okay, no, I'll make it as a capture task only. Anyway, I think we can pass it quickly maybe. Here we go. Open our console and then just remember that every time that I open this or restart or shut down and open this domain controller, I have all of my SQL services not running, and this is very important. It should be up and running because I need the SQL 2016 database for future deployment of my workstations, because their names will be taken from a SQL database, as I said before, according to the network adapter MAC address. Okay, so if this database is not working, so the PCs will not get name during the deployment. Okay, anyway, I am just restarting this these services. And then we have also the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit Monitor service. This should be up and running because you will not be able to monitor the deployment unless this service is up and running. So here we create a new task sequence, and here we will tell him to we will give it a task sequence. We name it, for example, capture Windows 10 or cap win LTSC, okay, 2019, and then we name it. So our zero touch installation was only a first phase, so we can after that make some tips and tweaks. And here we will choose this template. We'll tell him to sys prep and capture. Okay, this is the task that we will use. This is a predefined tasks or task templates, ready-made templates for tasks, and with all of the necessary scripts. Here we will use sys prep, and we will tell him to sys prep a Windows 10 Enterprise. This is the one that we need. And then we tell him do not have a key. And then we will tell him the normal information, the full name of the operating system, DC Comics, and if you have an organization you can type it, and then if the Internet Explorer is opened, if it can redirect your home page to your company homepage, for example. Anyway, we will not have a local administrator password, okay, because we have already done this. All of this is done before. And then next, and then okay, it's finished. So now we have our task created. So actually I needed to put it under the folder of Windows 10. I have created it not under the folder of Windows 10 LTSC, so I will put it under the folder. I'll cut it and copy it. So here we can see that my task will be under the Windows 10 LTSC folder. I need to be organized. Okay, so here I am. I have already took a copy of the task under and put it under the folders. Just a moment. So let's continue our lab. Here we will, as I said before, this is the capture Windows 10 LTSC image task. Okay. Because I have duplication in the tasks. Okay, so I am putting one of them in the folder because I want to be organized. So I am putting the task under the folder of Windows 10 LTSC, and I'm creating the duplicate task because I have copied the task already. So I am deleting the extra task. So we'll create, we will delete the duplicate task, and now we'll begin configuring our capture task, capture and sysprep task, sysprep and capture task. We need to take the name of the capture task sequence, and then we will change the custom.ini section in the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. As you can see here that working with multiple virtual machines have its impact on the the hard disk and the RAM. Here I think here the application hanged, so I am repeating the process again. Here I am taking the task sequence ID and then right click and properties, and then we will go to the rules or the custom.ini section. Here we are telling him to begin. Here basically what we are doing here, we are telling him during the deployment, don't give me a window asking for the task sequence or the task, here I am telling him to skip the task sequence ID screen or window. Okay, I am giving you the task sequence ID that you should implement. Why you are doing this? This to automate the process of the task sequence selection. Here we are telling him to skip task sequence window selection, and I am giving you the task sequence ID that you should run. Okay, so I don't need the task sequence selection screen. I will give you the task sequence that you should run, and the task sequence ID that you should run is equal capture so and so. This what happens. Okay, this is the way, or this is the things that will be implemented during the deployment. These are the steps that will be run or will be implemented during the deployment. These are the steps. They are a couple of steps. They will be run in order. Okay, so all of these are windows and selections, and this section or this text file or what seems to be a text file, this is the answers to our deployment input. Okay, anyway, here we are telling him to skip the task sequence window, and this is the task sequence that we will implement. It should be yes, not no, okay, because I have already given him the task sequence ID. And here I'm telling him not to skip the capture. Here he is telling me that, or I'm telling him not in the beginning of the deployment. It will give you a window asking to install the operating system, so we have already answered it with yes, and then another question will be asked or will be displayed on the Windows deployment or through the Windows deployment screen, asking to if you want to capture and sysprep a Windows operating system or something. So we are telling him not to skip this window. I need this window to be available so I can choose to capture this image or to capture an image. So we are telling him to not to skip the capture section, and here we are telling him to skip the task sequence window, and we're giving him the task sequence ID. And then apply and OK, and you need, after any change to the custom.ini or to the rules, any change to the rules, you should after that update the Microsoft deployment share, and then to replace or update the boot image, okay, from the Windows deployment services. Okay, we have done this in the previous videos. Any change in the rules section in the deployment share, you should initiate an update for the deployment share, and this update will affect the boot image, and then you need to change or replace the boot image in the Windows deployment services console. Okay. And then to make a restart to the deployment service, of course. Here we're giving him properties, and we will go to the boot section. Here I am telling him to continue the boot. Okay, we don't need this option now, because basically what you are doing, because here this is a problem. Here it's not a problem. Here I have mistaken after creating the task. Okay, we will not boot the workstation in the Pixie mode boot, or we will not boot the workstation which is called PC DC01 in the Pixie mode option. We will boot it normally to the Windows operating system. Normally we will not use this option. I will not boot it in the Pixie mode system. We will open the PC, and we have already Windows 10 installed on it. We will boot normally and log into the Windows 10 operating system, and then we will go to the deployment share. We can access it even though it is hidden. We will go, and then through the Windows deployment share we will run a script, okay, that will initiate the capture process. Okay, so we don't need this step anyway, so we don't need this step, so please cancel this step, okay, or don't do this step, okay, because we will do it later but not now. Okay. Because the capture process should not be done through the Pixie boot mode. It should be, you need to boot the Windows normally, and then we will go to the deployment share and run a script called Light Touch. This script will initiate or will give us the menu for the capture process. And you need to make sure that when you are making a new deployment or you're making a new deployment process, you need to delete the logs, okay, and the folders for the old deployment process, okay, because for example if I am deploying the same PC with the same name, for example if I will delete this or I am making a deployment, for example if I have considered to delete this virtual machine as a whole and repeat the process again with the same name, and I have left these two folders without deleting them, it will not complete the process and the error will happen. So if you need to repeat the process and the PC will be deployed with the same name, you need to go to the deployment logs and delete the logs, okay, because if these logs will be left and you repeat the process of the deployment with the same PC name, this will make a conflict or will make an error. Anyway, so now we need to I'll just bypass all of this process because it's not needed. Here we again, sorry, here I have opened the PC, okay, and logged in. As I said before, we will not boot this workstation in Pixie boot mode to initiate the capture process. We should initiate the capture process from inside the Windows system. So here we can see, I will show you all how this will be done. Here, for example, what I am doing here, you can see that the care of one, this is the local administrator user that I have renamed from administrator to care of one. It doesn't have a password every time I log in without a password. So as a security precaution, you need to give the local administrator user a password, which is now renamed to care of. So I am just giving my care of one or my local administrator user a password, okay, because I didn't put a password yet for the local administrator, which is renamed now to care of one. So I'm giving it a password because when you take an image, your image will take a copy or an image of all of the setting of the Windows, including your users or local administrator users. So here I am giving my local administrator password. Its password being changed, and then we will begin the sysprep process first, because the capture here, the process of the capture, you need first, before capturing or taking an image, you need first to make a sysprep to the machine. As I said before, sysprep is something like memory wiping. We need to make this PC completely generalized or completely to be ready for deployment. So here what I am doing here, I have gone to the, now this is the process to initiate or to begin the capture and sysprep process. We will go to the D and we will go to the run, and then we will type the share pass, the deployment share pass, which was DC0 deployment share and $sign. This $sign is because the share is hidden. So we will type it in the run, and then we will go to the scripts, okay, and then we will run a script that will initiate the process of the sysprep and the capture process, okay. It's the script that we will run. This is the folder that contains all of the scripts that the deployment share uses during the whole process of our lab. This is where the scripts of the deployment share reside, and this is where the deployment process use its scripts. So now we will run the light touch. This is the one that we need, and after we run it, it will give you a screen very similar, or this is the screen that we have seen when we are booting the PC in the Pixie boot mode, and then we have communicated with the Windows Deployment Services server. This is the boot image menu. You will see that now. Tell him yes, okay. Here we can see that this is the menu for the is very similar to the menu that we have, or this is actually the boot image menu that we got when we were deploying our zero touch installation process. Sorry. So now here we will get a selection asking us to just a minute. Here I'm telling him to use the task sequence capture Windows 10 LTSC 2019 image. This is the task that you have created a couple of minutes ago, and then he is telling me where to capture or where to put the image or the capture image that we will take. We'll put it in the folder named captures under the deployment share folder. Okay, so now I tell him next. And after that he will begin the sysprep process. This is the first step, and then he will begin after finishing the sysprep to begin taking an image of this workstation. I think we can get it more quicker. Okay, so here the task sequence or the task progress window will appear. Okay, here you go. He beginning set image build, and then he will begin making sysprep to the machine. And we can see here that this is the task ID capture when LTSC 2019. I think I can pass it this real quickly, maybe just a moment. Okay, here now is executing. Here is now is preparing or is making the sysprep step. He is sysprepping this workstation, and after he make a sysprep, he will shut down or he will make a restart. Sorry, after making a sysprep, he will restart the machine. I don't remember if he's making a restart or shutdown. No, he will make a shutdown to the virtual machine. After that, you need to open it again, so the capture task list or the capture task sequence will complete, because after the sysprep is done, we need the next step will be initiated, which is taking an image of the system, or taking an image of this Windows 10 operating system, including the softwares, the Windows setting, and the tweaks and tips that we have done, or the tricks that we have done. Anyway, he is now processing or generalizing phase sysprep. So at the end, after the sysprep and the capturing of image of this Windows 10 operating system, we should, when we check the deployment share capture folder, we should see the captured image.wim file will be in this folder. Okay, and this capture image, we will use it to deploy it to the remaining 52 PCs. You remember that we have 53 PCs that we need to deploy Windows to it with all of the programs and everything. So now we have one deployed and we have 52 remaining. So we will use this capture image to be deployed to the remaining 52 PCs. Anyway, we have restarted, or we have shut down the virtual machine and open it back, and then the workstation or the task, the capture task sequence will be completed. He got us to the Windows Deployment Toolkit menu, or Windows Deployment Tool menu. So Windows Deployment Toolkit window or option maybe. Okay, here we can see that it's now creating the WIM, or this is the process of creating or capturing the image. Okay. I repeat again, you don't need to go to the Pixie mode option to make this or to deploy. Sorry, you don't need to go to the Pixie mode to implement this capture image task. Okay, we should do it through the Windows as in the process that we have done. Okay, so now we are creating a WM file. It's now 3%. It's 14%. It's now 29%. It's 47%. 65%. 69%. Now 99%. We are almost 100%. So after capturing the image of this operating system, we will go to another process. We need to deploy this captured image to all of the remaining 52 PCs. So we will create another task sequence. So remember, we have created until now 2 task sequences. The first task sequence is to install Windows 10 LTSC with all of the programs in the silent mode, and then the second task sequence is to capture sysprep and capture the Windows 10 LTSC operating system, and the third task, it will be the deploy of this captured image. Okay, so here we can see that it's saying a couple of errors. It says that it doesn't find network drivers for your device. This is normal, because when you sysprep the workstation, the network adapter drivers doesn't appear, or will be a problem if you sysprep a machine. The network drivers will have this error, or this will appear, but normally don't bother yourself with this error. Anyway, now we should go to the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit console and create a third task. This task is to implement or deploy the captured image that we have taken now to the remaining 52 PCs. So how this will be done? Okay, I can show you all, just a minute. I need to show you all what will happen next. Here we will have the deploy of master image. Here we can see that we will create a new virtual machine, and we will name it any name that we need, and then The same process will apply when you power on the virtual machine. This workstation doesn't have any operating system on it, and it has a hard disk that is not partitioned yet. It will try to communicate to get an IP address, so it will find the DHCP on 10.0.1.21 on port 60. It will get an IP address, and then it will go to the system Pixie boot mode, and then the DHCP will provide it with the IP and the boot file for the IP and the boot file for the Windows Deployment Services server. So after that, the workstation will go to the Windows Deployment Server, and then the Windows Deployment Server will initiate the boot image system, and then he will begin deploying the task, or we will begin implementing the task of deploy Windows 10 LTSC 2019 capture image. This is a task that we will create on Microsoft Deployment Toolkit console, and then this task will make a script. This script will deploy this image that we have taken from a previous from a couple of minutes. The image that we have created, this script will deploy it to this workstation, and not only it will deploy the image that we have taken, but it will also join it to the domain. So we will deploy the captured image, and then we will also join this PC to the domain. Okay, and we will give it a name, of course, when we are working with this deployment. Okay, so how this task will be created and how we can deploy this image using this task, that we will do it now. So bear with me. So now we will log into the DC02, our second domain controller. So now we are in the process of creating the third task to deploy the capture image that we have taken to a new virtual machine that we will create in the couple of minutes coming. Anyway, so now we'll go and check if the capture image is taken. We go to the deployment, share, and capture. We can see that we have our image. It's 7 GB. So now we will create a task, and this task should deploy this image, okay, that we have taken. Okay, how this task will be done? Simply we will go and create a normal task. We will create a task like as we or to assume that we are installing a new operating system. Okay, let us assume that we are installing. We will do the same as we have done when we were creating the first task list or the first task sequence, which was installing Windows 10. So we will create a task, and then we'll tell him this is a standard client task, and then before creating the task, we should first import the image that the capture image that we have taken into the operating system. Remember that when the first time you need to install the Windows 10, we have go to the operating system and tell him import operating system, and then we inserted the Windows 10 DVD in the virtual machine, and then we tell him to take a copy of this Windows 10 and put it in the deployment share. So we'll do the same, but here instead of telling him to import operating system from a DVD, we'll tell him to import an operating system from the captured image, and we will show him the location of the captured image and tell him to import this capture image to the section of the operating system. Okay, so just wait for a moment. So here we tell him to import a custom image, add a capture image, WIM file that you wish to deploy. This is our second option. And then we will show him the location of the image. And then after importing this or taking a copy of this image to be in the deployment share, we will create a task to deploy this image. Okay, anyway, so now we tell him this. Okay, here is an option telling him that to move the files to the deployment share instead of copying them. So what we are doing now that he's copying, I will copy this image, okay, to the deployment share in another folder. I don't know where it is, but you can tell him to move the files instead of copying them. Okay, the same. I think the capture already, it is already in the deployment share, so you can tell him to move the files to the deployment share instead of copying them. Okay. Okay, and then him set of files are not needed, do not copy, and then this is the destination of the folder. He will name a folder in the deployment share and name it with this name in the operating system folder. And then next. Sorry. So now we're in the process of so he now already imported the operating system, or in this case it's not operating system, this is our image. So we need first to import the image captured to the operating system section, and then we will create a task and tell him to deploy the imported image, okay, that we have already done in the folder of the operating system to be deployed through using this task. So here we are naming it deploy image LTSC 2019. Deploy capture image. And then we tell him next. And then we will choose the standard client task sequence as if we are creating a normal, as if we are installing a normal operating system, and then we'll choose our image, and then we tell him we don't need a product key, and then we will do the same as if we were installing Windows 10, a normal Windows 10 operation, or a normal Windows 10 installation process. This is the full name and the organization and the website that when you open the Internet Explorer, it should be redirected to it, your home page. If you can see now, we will not put a local administrator password. And then next. And then finish. Just a moment. So now we'll begin. Sorry, I think it is paused. So now here we will begin I think we have done this. We have tell him we don't need a local administrator password, and then next, and then summary. And then we will begin configuring this task, which is deploy capture. We need the name. We will take the name. What we'll do a couple of things. First of all, we need to go to the task sequence, and then as if we were doing the same, or as if we are doing a normal Windows 10 installation, we need to go to the script, or we need to go to the task for the deployment and tell him to format the hard disk for the new workstation, the same as we have done with the Windows 10 installation, and tell him to use 50% of the hard disk for the first partition, which is the C, and then we will tell him, and this is a primary partition, and then we will make another partition and we call it data, and this will be also a secondary primary partition, and then we'll name it data, and this is 50%, the remaining 50%. So we have 50% for the first partition and 100% for the remaining of the 50%. Okay, anyway, just to be sure, now we are doing this for the BIOS operating system and the UEFI operating system, the same that we have done before in the Windows 10 installation, telling him that if we have, for example, a 200 gigabyte, so the first 100 gigabyte will be for the C partition, and then we have another 50% remaining. 100% of this 50% will be for the second partition, so that means that will be 100 and the other one 100. This is for the BIOS operating systems, or the operating system that use the BIOS boot system, and this is for the operating system that use the UEFI boot system. Okay, the same that we have done before, and we will format it as NTFS, of course. This is the second partition. So we are basically doing the same that we have done when we have installed the Windows 10. So now we have our script, or our deploy task will be, first of all, we need to tell it to partition the hard disk. And then we need to go to the rules and tell them, or tell it to use the task sequence. First of all, we need to tell him to skip the task sequence and to skip the capture, and tell him to run the task sequence ID for the deploy, the one that we have created now. So I am basically telling him not to give me a selection for the task sequence ID. I needed to run a specific task sequence ID, and I'm telling him this task sequence ID will be for the deploy, the one that we have done now, to deploy the captured image. And then we should tell him to skip capture, because we have done this before. I don't need to capture, I need to deploy. Okay, so, and the deploy, basically it is similar like installing Windows. Okay, but you are here installing a custom image. Okay, so here we are telling him we need another step. I need him to tell him, or I need it to join this PC to the domain. So I should tell him tell him to skip domain membership. Okay, and then I will give him the details, or the user that he will use to join this PC or workstation to the domain. So here I am telling him to give me the window to this. Don't skip the computer name, because he should give me a window so I can type the name of the PC in it. But I need him to just a minute. But I need him to do something else. Just a minute. So here I'm telling him to skip computer name. Do not skip computer name. Give me a window so I can type the computer name in it. But skip the domain membership. So skip the window that will ask me for the domain credentials. Okay, what I mean by this, because if I need to join the domain, I need to give him a username and a password so he can join the domain, join the workstation to the domain with it. So I am giving him the Microsoft deployment user that we have created in the Active Directory, and the password for this user, and the domain name, which is domain dcdm.local, and this to join the domain. And this is where he will put this workstation. He need to join this workstation to the domain and put it in a certain organizational unit, which will be terminals. This is the whole, or the complete path for this organizational organizational unit. So what I am doing, I'm telling him to give me a window to put the PC name in it, and then I'm telling him to join the domain using a certain, or to join this workstation or PC to the domain using a certain username, which is mdu.dtu, and this is the password, and this is the domain that he will join this PC to, and this is the location where he will put this this workstation in it, in C, in terminals, what, so and so. So after doing this, we need to, here I'm just making sure for the location of the PC that will be put in, and then we tell him to we need to update the deployment share after that. So this is the location where this PC will be put in after joining the domain. Anyway, I'm telling him to, I'm just rearranging, okay, because I have these lines repeated, so I am just removing the repeated lines, and then I should have this section under skip domain membership. Okay, this is only just rearranging the lines because this should be in this order, okay. Anyway, the whole rules will be, I have already put them in text files and put them in a Google Drive link. This will be in the description section of the video, okay. Just a moment. Okay, so now we will continue, sorry. So now we have everything prepared. We need to begin the deploy of the capture image. First we need to update the deployment share. This should be done every time you make a change in the rules. So now we have finished the update of the deployment share, and then we go to the task again. I think I will do a little change in this task. Okay, we need to make an unattended.xml file. While they are doing this, we need to put an unattended XML file in the capture image folder, or the folder that contains the capture image for the Windows operating system. We need to have an unattended file or unattended XML file to run with it, okay. Why? Because we need to bypass the OOBE, or the out of the box experience, okay. Why? Because when you are making a sysprep, okay, and the first thing that will appear for you is the out of the box experience. What we mean, I'll show you all, because this has been said already, but I need to show you all again what will happen. I think, sorry, this is not here, this is in the Firefox. Because when we were installing the Windows 10, we have a problem, the one moment stuck screen. This happened to us because the out of the box experience phase was not passed. So this also will encounter, or this also will appear for us when we are deploying the capture image, because the capture image, let me show you all. The capture image, let me have a look here. Okay, when you make a capture image, okay, and you make sysprep before it, it should go, just a minute, it prepares the PC for delivery by setting PC to boot in OBBE. So when you make a sysprep, the sysprep will force the deployment process to go to the out of the box experience phase. Okay, so we need to pass this phase because this will make our whole deployment process stuck. So we need to make an unattended.xml file, the same that we have been doing when we were installing Windows 10 deployment of the zero touch installation process. So we need also to pass this process for the deploy of the capture image. So we are making an unattended.xml file, and we will put it in the, or we will make it run with the capture image .wim, so it can pass the out of the box experience. Okay, don't worry. Okay, when we deploy the image we will see all of this live, so don't bother yourself, just make the steps, and we will when this image will be deployed we will see what I mean. Okay, so now we are making an unattended XML file. So now what I am doing here, I am deleting this virtual machine, and then I will create a new virtual machine with the same name, but instead of deploying or instead of installing Windows 10 and installing the software, I will deploy a custom image. Okay. So before, you need to make sure that you are deleting the previous logs for the previous deployment process, because if you left them and you make another deployment with the same PC name, so this will make a problem. Anyway, we'll make a new virtual machine, and then I will create a virtual machine with the same name. Then generation 1, we have discussed all of these options before. We'll give it RAM, 2 GB of RAM and dynamic memory allocation, and then we will connect it to the same internal switch, or the same switch that all of our virtual machines are connected to, or all of our domain controllers are connected to. And then we'll give it a hard disk of 200 GB, and then we tell him to install an operating system from a network based installation server, so it will boot the machine in the Pixie boot mode. So in the Pixie boot mode, it will here we can see that there is an error. Why? Because when I deleted the virtual machine, this didn't delete the hard disk for this virtual machine. It have already deleted the files for the virtual machine, but the hard disk is still there. So as we can see, here is the hard disk. We need to delete it first, and then this error will appear for us. Will disappear for us. So after that, we tell him a hard disk and then a network based installation server. This will make the workstation boot in the Pixie boot mode, and the DHCP, before booting the workstation in the Pixie boot mode, it will give it the IP of the Windows deployment services server, so it can begin the deployment of the capture image. Anyway, we need to make sure that the MAC address for this workstation will be allowed to get an IP from our DHCP server. We have done this in the previous video, so we need to make sure, because if it's not in the allowed filters section in the DHCP configuration, it will not take an IP address. And then we should restart the DHCP service, so it can implement the change that we have done now from so it will implement the change that we have done in the filter or in the allowed filter. Sometimes you don't need to do this, but if the change was not implemented directly or on the spot. You can do this to speed the process. And then we will tell him in the boot option that I need it to boot in the Pixie boot mode unless I press escape. I said before I have a problem with pressing F12 while working with the Hyper-V remote desktop connection or remote desktop interface. Okay, F12 doesn't work, maybe because I'm working with an laptop, or maybe I don't know, but F12 is not working for me anyway. So I'm telling him to boot. If any workstation tries to communicate with you, please put it in the Pixie boot mode option. Sometimes, as I said before, because I have a limited hardware resources, so sometimes there is a little bit of hanging or not responding processes. I think we can speed up the process a little bit, so we can do this. So we have now already powered on the virtual machine, and then just a minute. So now it already communicated with the Windows Deployment Services server or server role, and then it will use the Windows boot image 64-bit. And then it will begin the process of deployment of our captured image. It looks the same like when we were installing the Windows 10 LTSC 2019 and deploying the softwares silently. The same process. Even it seems to be like the same steps also. Anyway, we can pass this process a little quicker. Anyway, this is the deployment interface, so it's telling us that it's running the deploy image LTSC task, and then he will begin formatting the hard disk for this station or this newly created virtual machine. He will make it two partitions, C and D. And then I think it so now it will begin deploying the image, the captured image. I think it will take a little bit of time. Anyway, so now it is already joining, or it is already installed the image or the custom image. But here a problem arises that we can see that I think here also it didn't ask me for a name. Okay, for the PC here there is a problem. If you notice all that when I was deploying this task, it didn't ask me for a PC name. Okay, so I have already encountered a problem here that it didn't make the PC, or didn't give this virtual machine the PC name that I was intending to give it, okay, and they didn't also ask me for a PC name, okay. So here is the problem. The problem here that I asked him, first of all, here we can see that this workstation have already joined the domain, but I need to give, or I need it to give it Active Directory user account so it can log into the domain. So as you see here that our deployment process for the capture image is successful. The PC have joined the domain, and it contains all of what we need, the software and all of this, but the PC name is the problem, because it didn't give me a choice to choose the PC name, even though I told it in the script to not to skip the part of the window asking for a PC name, but it didn't give me a chance to choose the name. So give it something like a random name, and this was not correct. I needed to give it a name by myself. So this is an error, just take a note. But as we see here that the PC have already joined in the domain, and then when I log with my Active Directory user account, we can see that it's already joined in the domain and everything is implemented. Even the script, the login script, will be implemented. But the problem is with the PC name, because the PC name was not it was skipped, even though I didn't tell him to skip the PC name. As you see all in the rules, I told him to give me a window asking for the PC name, but here he skipped this and he put a random name by itself. So I think we will solve this problem later, okay. But this is one of the problems that we need to troubleshoot. The process of the deployment of the custom image has been succeeded, and also the PC have joined the domain, but the name part was not correct. We are giving it give us a name, or the PC was giving a name that was not correct. This is not the one that I intended to give it, or this is not the name that I was intended to give it to this virtual machine. But this is because the part of the PC name was skipped. Anyway, I thought first that the problem is with I have made a group policy in the Active Directory that as soon as the workstation joins the domain, there is a group policy that will be applied. It will disable the local administrator account for this workstation, and I thought that the local administrator user for the workstation should not be disabled unless, or it should be disabled after the deployment process finishes, because during the deployment process it uses this local administrator password to, or user to complete the process of the deployment. That was my assumption, but it was not correct, because actually this was not the case. But anyway, I thought that was the problem. Here we can see that the name of the PC is not the one that I was intended. So I thought maybe the local administrator the local administrator user should not be disabled. So I got to my group policy and tell it not to disable the local administrator user for any workstation, because this is a group policy that I have done. I have told him that any workstation that joins the domain, the local administrator account should be disabled. Anyway, we can see here that the PC name will appear at the bottom. Make a refresh. We can see here that here is the name. It's already joined the domain, but this was not the name that I need. I needed to be PC DC01, okay. So the whole deployment process was a success, and the PC joined the domain but with a different name, okay. And there is a problem in the deployment section for the PC name part was skipped. Anyway, so I thought maybe the problem was that the PC should not, or the PC object should not be here, because I am telling him that you need to join the PC to the domain. So if this PC object is there, for example, I'm telling him to join PC DC 01 to the domain. Okay, so if he find this PC already in the folder or the organizational unit of the PCs that joined the domain in this, for example, this is the place where all of the PCs that had joined the domain will be in. Okay, so I'm telling him to put my PC DC01 in this folder. So if it's already there, I think this was a problem. Maybe I don't need this object to be here, so I deleted it. Okay, so when he tried to join this workstation to the domain, he will find a place here, or he will not find a duplicate, or he will not find this object already here. Okay, so I thought that maybe was the problem, so I deleted this computer object and see if maybe this will solve my problem. So here we have two issues. I thought maybe the problem was with my local administrator user account, or maybe the computer object was the issue. So I deleted the computer object and enable the local administrator account, and then I will repeat the whole process again and see if the name of the PC will be correct, and we will see if during our deployment, if the section for giving the PC a name will be applied to us, or will be provided to us. Okay, so here this is the problem. Here we can see that also the PC will or the hard disk for the PC will be partitioned for two partitions, C and D. So this section of the script is correct, and we can see our share folders is appearing. Okay, all of them. So I think I'm making a restart. I don't know why, but anyway, we'll make a restart. Okay, and then I'm logging again for the second time. So don't know why I'm doing this. Just a minute. So here I'm just checking to see if my documents, okay, or my user profile default folders will be redirected to DMI documents, because this was one of the tips and tricks that we have done, and we have used our dev prof to apply it. We need every user logging into this machine to have his documents or default Windows user profile documents folder to be redirected to DMI documents. Okay, this is a part of the verification process. So here we can see that the deployment process is saying that it is finished, okay, without any problem. But I thought there is a problem with the deployment. Okay, one of them is the local administrator account, the other is with the computer object. And the other one is with the OOBE, or out of the box experience. I thought that maybe the out of the box experience was not passed. Okay, so maybe this was a problem. All of these are assumptions, but at the end I think the problem was, or I think the problem was because of the section for asking for the computer name. There was a problem with the deployment section asking for the computer name. If I was provided with a computer name section, I think this will solve the problem. Okay, anyway, so now I will join again, or I will go to the DC02, and then I will begin again. I will delete the virtual machine. Okay, here I'm deleting a couple of computer objects so I can test them, and then I will begin again the process of again I will delete the virtual machine and begin the whole process of the deployment again, and see if to see maybe deleting the computer objects and enabling the local administrator accounts will solve the problem. So here I will delete again the virtual machine. So here as troubleshooting steps, I have make a change to my group policy to enable local administrator accounts on the workstations, and I deleted the computer object, and make sure that the unintended.xml file is working. Okay, is working perfectly, because we need to bypass the out-of-the-box experience, so the deployment process should be implemented successfully. I thought that this was the problem, or these three issues are my problem, but at the end the problem was during the deployment process I wasn't provided with the section or with the window asking for the computer name. This was the problem. I think this was a problem with the rules. Okay, so I need to double check it. Anyway, here I am just making sure that after deleting the virtual machine that the hard disk is not there. It is still there. I need to delete it. So now we will create a new virtual machine, and then we will make it with the same steps, or with the same configuration, PC DC01, with the same hard disk, with the same setting, 2 GB of RAM for the virtual for the memory. As we see here, I have a lot of trials and errors, but this is good because I am knowing what is the problem. Okay, here I am just joining it or putting it on the same switch that the domain controllers are on it, and then we'll give it a 200 GB hard disk, and then tell him to install the operating system from a network-based installation server. Finish. And then we need to take its MAC address or network card MAC address, and tell the DHCP to allow this MAC address to get an IP address. So now we go to the allow filter and tell him to we'll make a new one, or actually I can edit the one already there. And then we should try and see if our deployment will be correct. Actually the main problem with this deployment is the PC name. I need it to be in a certain name, but the process itself, it is completed successfully, but the name of the PC is not correct. And actually all of the previous videos you are still providing the name of the PC manually. In the upcoming videos we will make this process automatically through using SQL 2016 database. As I said before, we will have the PC names, and to every PC name it should have a certain MAC address. So the PC names will be given according to the MAC addresses of the network cards for the virtual machines. the MAC address or the network cards for the virtual machines. Okay, so here we can see that the deployment has begun. Okay, it began again. Here we can see, if we can note here, that I am not giving, or I am not given the section for giving the PC name. So this is the problem. Okay, but let me see, because I think in this process or in this deployment I will be giving an option, or I will be given an input. I should be given an input to put the PC name. Okay, but I think this is passed already. Okay, I am given now the PC name. Okay, PC. Before I wasn't giving this window, but anyway, even though I am given PC DC01, I'm giving him or I was giving the window to put the PC name, but still when deployment is finished, the PC name is completely different. Okay, I think we can pass all of this quickly. We know all of the process, so we don't need to repeat it back. Okay, and then we will go. Okay, now as we see here that just a minute, we can see here that the PC had joined the domain. Okay, now the PC joined the domain. We will log in. As we can see here that the PC name is different. Still there is a problem with the PC naming, okay, in the deployment process. So it wasn't or the issue was not because I was not provided with the PC name window, but now I have already been given the PC name. Window was appearing for me and I give it a name, but still the name is not correct. So there is still a missing issue here. I think the problem was with the local administrator account. Anyway, I will troubleshoot this problem. I know that I've solved it the upcoming video, but just take a note that our process is not completely successful. There is a problem with the PC naming. Okay, so I think we can pass it real quickly. So now, just a minute. I think this is paused. So now we still see the name. It's not the name that we have given it, but we can see that all of the our documents are there. Here I'm checking and see. You need to make this or make this check after okay, what I mean here, because if you didn't do this step, you need to go to every folder of the folders for the documents for the user profile. You need to do this and go and check the location. Okay, you need to do this, because if you didn't do this, the folders will not appear. Okay, why this? Because it needs an administrator account. Okay, so the profile, it needs an administrator user so it can create the folder or to move the folder from the C to the D. Okay, we have already done this in the profile, but to make this process happen, you need to log in to the machine after the deployment with an administrator account, and then right click every folder and then check the location. Just check the location, and then the process of the moving of the folders will be implemented. So I am taking a note again. You need to go and do this step urgently. Okay, so here we can see that my documents, and still here is an issue that still the deployment task isn't finished. I think the problem because maybe the problem for the name of the PC, because the task itself, or the deployment task is not completed to the end, because there is a problem. Okay, anyway, I am making a restart to see if the problem arises again. Now anyway, we are restarting it back. I am logging again. So don't worry, this PC naming issue, I think I have solved it already, because I discovered the problem, but I don't remember how this was done. But don't worry, I will show you the fix for this problem. But it's good to know there is some problems with the installation, or to know the problems and how to solve it. Okay, anyway, we'll do this. Okay, just a minute. This is the name still as it is. Here you can see that the task deployment, it's still running. Okay, and it's completing the process. As I said before, I thought that the problem was the task or the problem for the naming not completed or not named as I wished, because of the problem of the local administrator account disabled. As I said before, the local administrator account is disabled in the group policy. Just a minute. So here, guys, we can see that I have my default domain policy, and in the security options, okay, I am telling him to enable the status for the local administrator account. This is a group policy that will be applied to every workstation that has a local administrator account. So I told him to disable the local administrator account, but I will enable it. Why? Because I thought that maybe the problem of not the PC naming is not correct, because during the deployment he is using this local administrator account to complete the process of the deployment. Okay, but I don't know if this is correct or not, but I tell him to enable and then okay, and see if this will solve the problem. So here I'm turning back. Anyway, I'm just checking that the folders are there. We need to make sure, again I'm repeating, you need to go for the first time, so you can these folders will be moved from the C users to here. You need to go and log into the workstation with an administrator account, and then right click every folder of these, okay, and check the location. So after doing this, all of the folders will appear in my documents. But if you didn't do this, these folders will not appear. So you need to make sure to right click every one of them and check the location section, so the process of the movement of the folders were complete. Anyway, as for the problem of the naming of the PC, I think I will solve it later. So this is all for this video. I hope this video was informative for you all, and would like all to thank you for viewing. So keep tuned. I will think you will solve. Keep tuned. I think we will solve the problem of the PC naming the next video. Thank you so much.